Welcome in to the Mile High Hoops podcast. Yes, they're still playing basketball in Denver. Well, not in Denver. They haven't played basketball in Denver in a while, but the Denver Nuggets are still playing basketball despite prior reports of their demise, which the demise is currently happening for the Denver Nuggets, which is no surprise because Nikola Jokic is not playing for the Denver Nuggets, out with the bruised bone in his knee, which he'll miss most of the month of January. And on top of that, since we last talked to you, his backup, who is a big part of the plan of replacing Nikola Jokic, Jonas Valanciunas, is also out for over a month with a calf strain. Now, that has left the Denver Nuggets extremely shorthanded. In Cleveland the other night, they didn't have any centers. Deron Holmes, who got his first real NBA taste against Toronto, was starting against the Cleveland Cavaliers, featuring two of the best front court players in the NBA, and Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley. And somehow the Denver Nuggets almost won that game with basically just Jamal Murray, Peyton Watson, and some guys. And it was an incredible effort. They didn't win that one. They did win in Toronto, which was one of the best wins of the year. And yesterday, they get their butts absolutely blown out of the building by the Brooklyn Nets. Michael Porter Jr., game high 27 points, game high 11 rebounds. And it was the return of Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon. And I think that's the biggest note here of what happened yesterday, is that the Nuggets are finally getting a little bit healthier. And it seems like we've hit rock bottom, at least fingers crossed, of the Nuggets' health concerns for the year. And it's all up from here, Anilo.
They didn't even show up yesterday in Brooklyn. Shout out Michael Porter Jr., though. He was ready to play. Led both teams in box plus minus. He was a plus 22 yesterday. But, Aaron Gordon, in his 21 minutes, looked like he didn't really skip a beat, right? 20.6 rebounds, couple of assists for AG. I think the more, I don't even want to use the term concerning, but you were maybe a little disappointed in the return performance from that of Christian Brown, only 3 points in his 24 minutes. But we saw David Adelman. You and I were at Broncos yesterday watching the game on the laptop while the Broncos game was going on, and you wrote the story at denversports.com. Like, David Adelman was just pissed, for lack of a better phrase, with how his Nuggets team came out in that game yesterday against Brooklyn. But I kind of have to just compartmentalize this road trip, compartmentalize these next couple of weeks without Nikola Jokic, who looks like he's on his way back, hopefully sooner rather than later. Hopefully the same for Cam Johnson. We shall see. But it just kind of is what it is right now for this Nuggets team. Not very pretty right now, Mr. Shapiro.
Yeah, look, things are happening all across the league that are weird. The Spurs lost the other night. The Mavs the Mavs beat the Rockets the other night. The Suns last night, with Dylan Brooks and Devin Booker burying threes in that game, beat the Thunder. Like, it's the point in the NBA season, and Matt Moore, our buddy, pointed this out. It's not really who you play, it's when you play them. And for instance, tonight, the Denver Nuggets against the Philadelphia 76ers. Nikola Jokic is out. Aaron Gordon is out. Cameron Johnson is out. Jamal Murray is out. Christian Brown is out. That's the entire Nuggets starting five. Jonas Valanciunas is out as well.
Tim Hardaway Jr. has an illness.
Their sixth man, right. And then you've also got like Tamar Bates, who can't play because he's hurt, which he would be playing tonight. I know Nuggets fans, unless you're a really hardcore Nuggets fan, don't know that name. So you've really got Peyton Watson, Jalen Pickett, and Zeke Naji playing against the Philadelphia 76ers, who have been pretty good. We all know what's going to happen tonight. The Denver Nuggets are going to win. No, I'm kidding. They might cover. They might cover because weird things happen in the NBA.
Yeah.
Weird things happen in the NBA, especially in times like this. But it's really not about who you're or who you're playing, but when you're playing them, because who is playing in those games might be drastically different than what it says on paper. So I'm not reading a lot into this. I said this in the last podcast. I'm not reading a lot into what's going on with the Nuggets. I think one thing that has kind of confounded me and like made itself completely clear, I knew this before, but the lack of ball skills that the Denver Nuggets have at the guard spot with Jamal Murray, obviously, has been fantastic. Yesterday, had a career high in assists. I thought he did a really good job of breaking blitzes and breaking traps. They just don't really have a guy out there that can create besides Jamal Murray. And I'm getting increasingly worried about it, both in the long term for both the playoffs and like breaking ball pressure, which is something that has cost the Nuggets in each of the last two postseasons against Minnesota and Oklahoma City, but also just the long-term knock-on effects on Jamal's legs. And we were hoping Cam Johnson could be that guy. He helped a little bit, but I still kind of think they need another guard, Anilo.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think the remedy to that is all of this is being exploited in the short term because of no Nikola Jokic. We know what he is, that point center, best player in the world, right? But I think you feel comfortable to a certain extent when Jokic is back out there that his skill set and the Nuggets team dynamic can overshadow some of these holes and flaws that they have at the ball handling position. But it's been absolutely magnified over the course of these last handful of games without the big fella out there. I just don't know what the answer is. Like you and I were talking about Spencer Jones who's on a two-way contract. I think the Nuggets should probably rip up the two-way contract and just make him a full-time player based off what he's been doing this season. We know what they're dealing with their roster situation already. So it's like, where are you going to get that help?
Yeah, at this point, it actually makes more sense to just wait with Spencer Jones until you're out of two-way contract dates and you just convert that contract into a full-term contract. The thing that's going on with the Nuggets and the reason why they're stuck in this position, this is really going to bother you if you're a Denver Nuggets fan and you're not a fan of billionaires. It's going to really bother you. So the Denver Nuggets are like a couple $100,000 over the luxury tax. And in the NBA, the luxury tax repeats. So if you repeat a couple years in a row, it actually increases in the amount of percentage you pay. So this year, because the Nuggets are only paying a couple $100,000, it's really not that much of a tax bill. You know, you pay like 10% or whatever of that bill straight back to the NBA, but you still are losing millions because you're not getting the money from the tax paying teams back into you. The problem is the Nuggets have been a tax paying team the last 2 years. And next year, they're definitely going to be a tax paying team with the AG and CB extensions kicking in. And with how much money they're projected to spend on those extensions, they're projected to pay a lot in their tax bill. And if they're a repeat offender next year, that tax bill becomes ludicrous. So it behooves the Nuggets owners to not spend into the tax this year, which means they need to cut a little bit of salary, which means they cannot sign Spencer Jones to a full-term contract, which will happen. In order to do that, they're going to need to cut away Zeke Naji's salary, which means you have to trade it. You can't just cut Zeke Naji. Or you could trade away Hunter Tyson, Peyton Watson, maybe even Jalen Pickett. The Nuggets need to dump salary somehow. So why hasn't it happened yet? Well, you look around the NBA, and there's a couple things that I think are holding it up. One, it's a lot harder to make trades now with the second apron, and teams that would make sense on paper that might match up with the Nuggets as a trade partner, for instance, the Dallas Mavericks with Najee Marshall, they're in the second apron. They can't accept more salary back than they can send salary out in a trade. If the Nuggets traded Zeke Naji and Peyton Watson for Najee Marshall, that works for the Nuggets side, but for the Mavericks side, it doesn't, until they end up trading Anthony Davis when they cut all that salary or, you know, something else. I'm just saying, like, that's something that might happen this year. So the Nuggets are kind of caught between a rock and a hard place right now because they need the market to shift a little bit. And Spencer Jones is running out of two-way contract dates. I think he's going to projected to be running out of them later this month. And the Nuggets are going to have to find a way to make him play because he is the 7th most minutes on this team. He's been fantastic. He needs to be part of this team come playoff time. Additionally, I'd argue I don't really care what Stan Kroenke makes off of this team. And this is clearly the team's window. I don't know if it extends past this year. If you're going to make a run, it needs to be this year. So I don't really care about your tax bill. You need to go in and sign some players, another 10-day player to be a center, which opened up today. They can sign any 10-day contract today. They need a center. They need a center this month. It's not debatable. They need to not kill Aaron Gordon's legs and stress out Deron Holmes and make him maybe an unconfident rookie. There's so many reasons why they need to do this. Secondarily, they probably need to clear open another roster spot. So after they have a 10-day and after they also have Spencer Jones on a full-time contract, they can pick up a guy in the buyout market, let's say like Chris Middleton, who I think would be very beneficial to this team come playoff time and down the stretch. So I think the Denver Nuggets need to make moves here. And they were kind of waiting this out till late January. But unfortunately, your hand has been forced now. And I think now it's time for Ben Tenzer and Jonathan Wallace to get onto the phones and start making some moves, and ownership be damned with their pocketbook constraints. And I would also argue, Anilo, you know, so many second apron teams have struggled. If you go into the second apron with a lot of talent with the idea that you're not trying to improve or be flexible, you can end up having a pretty good team. Why not just keep Jonas Valanciunas and Peyton Watson next year? Why not sign these guys to an extension and just say, F it, we're going to be a second apron team? I don't personally understand it. It's something I didn't get when they didn't re-sign KCP. I thought they could have added KCP for one more year, then gotten out from underneath the contract. I guess it's not the best way to manage an asset, but look what they got for KCP. Zilch. So that's kind of where the Nuggets are right now, and it's why tonight's game is going to be a shanda, as we say in Yiddish.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points, right? And look, I understand, Stan Kroenke and KSC, it's a multi-million-dollar company and this and that. You got the Rams, you got the Avalanche, you got the Nuggets, the Rapids, everything else that's got going for them. And I think for the fan base, the way that I kind of look at it is, and I agree with you, Jake, this is the window. You and I have sat here in these chairs time and time again and talked about how Nikola Jokic is the greatest player this franchise has ever had and probably will be the best player they will ever have in the history of the franchise. So if you're going to push your chips into the center of the table and pay that second apron and all these luxury tax dollars that come with it, you would think in theory that this is the season or this is the era in which the Nuggets would do just that. Obviously, easier said than done. These guys don't make all this money for, nothing essentially. So I agree with you, man. And Peyton Watson is a guy that you and I have harped on time and time again throughout the course of this season. Jonas Valanciunas, when he's been healthy, has been a really good fit. There's really no excuse outside of the financials, which unfortunately does not affect me and you and the Nuggets fans out there. It affects the big boss who owns the team to not keep this core together moving forward. And so I also agree with you in the sense of they do need a center right now because you don't want to put this much of a burden on Aaron Gordon, a guy that I think at this point in his career, the injuries will probably just become some sort of recurring thing one year after the next. I don't mean to be, a bad person when I say that necessarily, but history's kind of told us that as he gets older, the explosiveness in which he plays with, injuries are probably going to continue to creep up for Aaron Gordon. A couple games here, a month here, a few weeks there, whatever it might be. So Denver needs to act accordingly. But the reality of the situation is when Aaron Gordon is healthy and ready to go, and the rest of the starting five is healthy and ready to go, this Denver Nuggets team is damn near impossible to beat at their full strength. But the question is, do they have the reinforcements? They went out there and got Valanciunas, Hardaway Jr. for these reasons as well. But I'm looking at this core, Jake, and unlike KCP, I know Valanciunas is an older player. There's no reason to break up this core anytime soon.
Peyton Watson is their best trade chip because he's an expiring contract and a restricted free agent. So,
but that's a guy you want long term.
I don't know if they're going to be able to keep him long term because of the situation I just laid out. But I think something that's essential to the Nuggets team that became really essential to the LeBron teams later on in LeBron's runs is having playmaking around LeBron. I think having playmaking around Nikola Jokic is really important, and we're starting to understand that. But there's another thing that goes completely underrated about having around LeBron and also Nikola Jokic. We all think it's 3-and-D. No, it's athleticism. Having athleticism. Look how well Aaron Gordon is meshed next to Nikola Jokic because he's athletic. Even Jeremy Grant was a decent fit next to Nikola Jokic. We all know the mental stuff maybe wasn't there, but just as athleticism played. Peyton Watson is the most athletic guy on the Nuggets right now. And I think having that motor in those skills is something so valuable to the Nuggets. He can kind of change his game a little bit night to night, depending on what the Nuggets need because of he's so athletic. But you just look at what he does. He's shooting threes at a higher percentage this year than Christian Braun. I know Christian Braun barely played. He is making more threes per game than Christian Braun made last year and shooting more threes per game than Christian Braun did last year. And that's a real need for the Nuggets is to shoot more threes. On top of that, they're different defenders, but Peyton offers you something defensively that you need, and that's rim protection, especially with the things we just talked about with Aaron Gordon and his concerns. What do you really want from Aaron Gordon? Do you want him to be a guy that can go out and score 50 and be this awesome three-point shooter and dunker? Or do you want him to be the best defender? I think the Nuggets want him to be the best defender, but he's so often forced into an offensive role that the defensive responsibilities get left to nobody. And if Peyton Watson isn't there, it will truly be nobody. So I'd advise against trading Peyton Watson, especially when this is a one-year window. But if you're telling me I can trade Peyton Watson and Zeke Naji for Najee Marshall, I think that's an interesting conversation to have. And I think that's something we're going to see develop here in the next month or so. What trade pieces actually would make sense if they want to dangle Peyton Watson and just get something back for the value? I wouldn't say Peyton Watson is completely essential to this team, at least the starting five and the way it plays. He's a really nice piece to have and a player I would really regret losing if I lost him. But I think the Nuggets can find a way to get something they might need a little bit more than what Peyton Watson is, even though what I'm telling you is they kind of need a guy like Peyton Watson too. I know this is kind of illogical the way I'm explaining it. It's because Peyton has a lot of value. And the Nuggets, I think, realized it maybe a little bit too late. And now they're kind of stuck in this place of not knowing what to do. I mean, they're literally, they've got the police cars around them and they've got the bag and they're walking out of the bank, right? Like that's kind of where they're at with Peyton Watson.
Yeah, and it is what it is.
Speaking of this, I forgot to mention this. Do you know how many 30-point games Christian Braun has in his career?
Like 1 or 2, maybe not even any.
None.
Yeah, I was
you know how many
say
Peyton Watson has in his career?
Couple.
More than that.
Yeah. Well, and this is completely unfair, but I'm just throwing it out for the sake of conversation. I think the other thing that even just yesterday told me, and obviously hindsight's 2020, right? When Christian Braun is out for as long as he has been, naturally you're going to get some different looks at some different guys. And Peyton Watson, especially with Gordon being out, is one of those guys that got an elevated opportunity. Christian Braun, I think, is like the ultimate complement piece to Nikola Jokic when Jokic is on the court because of what he's able to do guarding on the perimeter, but also slashing, cutting, dunking, all of those types of things. I'm not trying to say Peyton Watson is necessarily an offensive creator or anything like that, but Peyton Watson can stand on his own 2 feet. Christian Braun is at his best when Nikola Jokic is out there commanding control of this offense, whereas I think Peyton Watson just has a little bit more versatility that bodes well across the entire NBA landscape on a game in and game out basis. So it is what it is. I'm happy the Nuggets extended Christian Braun. I think he's got the right mindset, the right attitude. He fits the culture of this Nuggets team. But if we're looking at straight X's and O's, Peyton Watson's a guy that not only has more upside, but also more versatility.
I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about this on today's show a little bit. You mentioned that David Adelman was very upset with the team's performance in Brooklyn, and I totally get it. But I think David Adelman deserves a lot of praise for the way the Nuggets have handled this road trip in general. I know that their record is horrible, but given what's happened with them losing at the buzzer, then Jokic going down, then Valanciunas going down, one of the things that I most admired about Michael Malone was the fight that he instilled in his teams and the mentality he had. And it's something that I thought they would lose a little bit of when they lost Malone. And I've talked about this a little bit, but it almost seems like they've regained it to the max part of where it was in the Malone era with David leading this team of just the never say die, always fighting through. Literally, you could have 2 hands and a leg tied behind your back, but the Nuggets are going to try and find a way. And I've been really impressed with the Nuggets just mentality because they could have quit in that Cleveland game. They had no business being in that game. They had multiple points within the game they could have quit. The Toronto game got tough down the stretch. They couldn't rebound. They couldn't shoot. They couldn't hit free throws. They couldn't bring the ball up the court, and they found a way to win. So really impressed with David Adelman right now as a coach through this stretch at least, and I thought he deserved a little shout-out.
I agree. I think David Adelman's done a good job, all things considered, with this Denver Nuggets team, and I know there were some questions about that during the offseason, and we agreed that it was a fine hire for this Denver Nuggets team, but I do like what David Adelman has kind of brought. Doesn't feel like they've lost a lot of that juice, as you alluded to, that they maybe had with Michael Malone and that fire and that passion, and maybe he's good at kind of towing the line of digging into guys and ripping guys when they need to, but also being a bit more of a player-friendly coach, if that makes sense, compared to that of Malone.
We'll be back on Thursday.
We will be back. When are the Nuggets back? We got a long time.
Friday.
They have a home game on Friday?
Against Atlanta. They're going to get their butts kicked.
Okay.
Probably, because Atlanta's good. That game went down to the wire in Atlanta.
Please come back, Jokic, please. Yeah. He's riding the bike. He looks good.
Giannis here Sunday. If you don't want to watch Chargers-Patriots, Giannis against the JV Nuggets.
Oh, it's going to be fun. That's going to be riveting.
Could be fun.
Chill on club level. Watch both.
There you go. We'll be back Thursday. We'll recap the road trip in full. We'll continue to tell you about what's going on with the machinations, all these details. If you have a question, I know we've got questions on the pod. I got to kind of go through some of these comments. Dan, were any of these good ones? I want to make sure I don't miss anything here. I'm trying to read.
What do the people want us to talk about? We got a couple of minutes.
But we have a couple minutes right now. But I was going to say, for Thursday's pod, if you have any specific questions, make sure you hit us up, because if you have questions about like the salary cap and stuff, I know that's a really complex topic.
This is the guy, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to break it down like the fan. Like Jake is like, no offense, like a basketball nerd. Like you just like understand this stuff in a different way that I personally do. And so when it comes to salary cap and intricacies of the NBA, like this is the guy you want to hear from. He's also got great work at denversports.com. We can have fun and rant together though.
Yeah. So we're going to continue to break that all down. I'll kind of get into the weeds on denversports.com, but I'll happily do that on this show as well, because you guys are hoops heads. Someone said getting Spencer Jones off the floor. I disagree. Keep Spencer Jones.
Spencer Jones has been great.
Spencer Jones has been awesome. Really good defender. Someone else said, can't take all of January off with some big games against big teams. I understand the want and the allure of beating the Lakers and the Thunder is there. The fact of the matter is, if the Nuggets are healthy in the playoffs, they got a chance against anybody. But if they're not healthy, they have no chance. So they just got to stay healthy and they got to do what's best. We already saw that the Nuggets can be one of the best teams in the West. Yes. First 15 games of the year proved it. We already saw everything we needed to know from the rest of the regular season, which it sucks to say that. And I'm trying to get you guys to listen to this podcast, but I just kind of let the cat out of the bag. It literally doesn't matter. You don't need to listen. Pick up the show again in March. We're good. I do hope you stay with us though, because the trade deadline will impact this team, and there's some things going on that will impact this team. But yeah, it doesn't. The Nuggets could lose every game in January, like I said in my story on denversports.com, and they'd probably be okay. He's Nikola Piro. I'm Jake Shapiro. We'll be back Thursday. Please continue to listen to this podcast. We'll talk to you then.